जय गिरिवरधारे जय गिरिवरधारे जय गोपीजनवल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारे जय गिरिवरधारे यशोधनन्दन ब्रज जनराञ्जन यशोधन ब्रज जनराञ्जन जमुनातीरावनचारि जमुनावनचारि जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Shri Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Shri Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupara Paramhamsa Privirakcharya Sutasara. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupara Paramhamsa Privirakcharya Sutasara. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namaskar Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Giri Raj Govardhana ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we'll be reading from Krishna book. And it's chapter 25. So let me just turn to that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasa Tato Jayamudhirayet Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopik Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhescha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today, dear devotees, we'll be reading about the devastating rainfall in Vrindavan. And we all know the Govardhan Leela, so we'll just go over that again. And I will refer to some notes by the Acharyas given by His Holiness Indradumna Swami in his talks basically on Govardhan. So we'll refer to that from time to time. When Indra understood that the sacrifice which was to be offered by the cowherdmen in Vrindavan had been stopped by Krishna, he became angry, and he vented his anger upon the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were headed by Nanda Maharaj. Although Indra knew perfectly well that Krishna was personally protecting them as the director of different kinds of clouds, Indra called for the Samvartaka. This cloud is invited when there is a need to devastate the whole cosmic manifestation. The Samvartaka was ordered by Indra to go over Vrindavan and inundate the whole area with an extensive flood. Indra thought to himself, to be the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, when the demons become very puffed up, they defy the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. Indra thought not a demon was puffed up by his Indra thought not a demon was puffed up by his material position. Indra, though not a demon, was puffed up by his material position, and he wanted to challenge the Supreme Controller. He thought to himself, at least for the time being, as powerful as Krishna. He thought himself at least for the time being, as powerful as Krishna. Indra said, just see the impudence of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They are simply inhabitants of the forest, but being infatuated with their friend Krishna, who is nothing but an ordinary human being, they have dared to defy the demigods. Krishna has declared in the Bhagavad Gita that the worshippers of the demigods are not very intelligent. He has also declared that one has to give up all kinds of worship and simply concentrate on Krishna consciousness. Krishna's invoking the anger of Indra and later on chastising him is a clear indication to his devotees that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness have no need to worship any demigod, even if it is found that the demigod has become angry. Krishna gives his devotees all protection, and they should completely depend on his mercy. So in the Bhagavad Gita also it has been described. There's a verse. Yanti deva vrata devan, pittar yanti prativrataha, bhutane yanti bhutaya, yanti mab yajanti apimam. That those who are worshippers of the demigods will go to the planets of the demigods. Those who are worshippers of ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me, those who worship the ancestors will go to the planets of the ancestors. And those who worship me will come to me. So Krishna will give all protection to his devotees, whereas we see that the demigods have limited capacity to protect their devotees. And we see here in this instance, Indra is a demigod and he's in charge of the rain, right? And therefore he ordered the Samvartika clouds to pour incessant rains in Vrindavan. So we'll just go now to the notes of the Acharyas and we'll see what they have to say. So it is being said that Krishna stopped the Govardhan Puja and asked his father Nanda Maharaj and the Brajbasis to worship Govardhan hill. So they used all the preparations that they had made for Indra's worship, and they worshipped Giriraj Govardhan. And they made a huge feast, and in this way they offered to Giriraj. Right, and we know the Giriraj pastime, and Giriraj was not satisfied, and he was asking for more. Aniyor, Aniyor, right? And he was asking for more, and they brought mountains and mountains of rice and offered to Giriraj, and Giriraj was still not satisfied. And in this way, the inhabitants, they basically emptied out all their the food that they had, and they brought it to Giriraj. And they offered to Giriraj like this. So we know that pastime. So it is being described here. In the meanwhile, Narad Muni went to Indraloka and described all that had happened to Indra, right? And Indra became very, very angry, that he developed a headache. And Gurudev says that it was the biggest headache ever in creation, the biggest migraine in history of creation that Indra had, because his ego, he was so puffed up and he had such a huge ego that he wanted to destroy the inhabitants of Vrindavan, and he summoned the Samvartika clouds, and he said to the Samvartika, "Oh my dear faithful servants, oh powerful clouds, if you are faithful to me, then hear what I have to say. The cowherd men, together with their king, Nanda Maharaj, have stopped my worship because of a little talkative boy, Krishna. They have abandoned my worship to worship this hill, and thus they have offended me, who the goddess of learning, Saraswati, constantly praises. I order you to let loose your incessant rains and destroy the cows. The milk those cows produce are the sole means for livelihood for Nanda Maharaj and his followers." So we see that here Prabhupada is describing in the Krishna book that actually Indra is not a demon, but he was thinking in this way to destroy the cows which are so dear to Krishna, and also the inhabitants, Krishna's devotees. Now this is a great offense, right? Just to blaspheme the devotees is one of the offenses of the holy name, to blaspheme the devotees of the Lord. Right? But here we see that Indra wants to kill the devotees. So he's thinking like a demon, right? And the poet Surdas, he writes, and he says, Krishna said, "My dear Samvartika clouds, firstly go and cut to pieces Govardhan hill with your vraja," which means your thunderbolt, "and throw the chunks down to the nether regions of the universe. All those who worship Govardhan hill should be killed, including Nanda Maharaj, and destroy Vrindavan, so no one will know that the place ever existed." So this is, the situation of Indra's thinking at that point, because he was so puffed up with this false ego, thinking that I am the supreme personality of Godhead. So let's just go on to Krishna book and read further. So Indra cursed the actions of the inhabitants of Vrindavan and said, "By defying the authorities of the demigods, the inhabitants of Vrindavan will suffer in the material existence. Having neglected the sacrifice to the demigods, they cannot cross over the impediments of the ocean of material existence. Indra further declared, "These cowherd men in Vrindavan have neglected my authority on the advice of a talkative boy who is known as Krishna. He is nothing but a child, and by believing this child, they have enraged me." Thus, he ordered the Samvartika clouds to go and destroy the prosperity of Vrindavan. The men of Vrindavan, said Indra, have become too puffed up over their material opulence and are confident due to the presence of their tiny friend Krishna. He is simply talkative, childish, and unaware of the complete cosmic situation, although he is thinking himself very advanced in knowledge. Because they have taken Krishna so seriously, they must be punished. They should be destroyed with their cows. In this way, Indra ordered the Samvartika cloud to go to Vrindavan and inundate the place. So it is being described that the Samvartika clouds only appear at the time of devastation, when this whole universe is devastated. Then that's when the Samvartika clouds are summoned to destroy the universe. So let's read on. It is indicated here that in the villages or outside the towns, the inhabitants must depend on the cows for prosperity. When the cows are destroyed, the people are destitute of all kinds of opulences. When King Indra ordered the Samvartika and the companion clouds to go to Vrindavan, the clouds were afraid of doing this mischief. But King Indra assured them, "You go ahead, and I will go also, riding on my elephant, and I shall apply all my strength to punishing the inhabitants of Vrindavan." Ordered by King Indra, all the dangerous clouds appeared above Vrindavan and began to pour water incessantly by all their strength and power. There was constant lightning and thunder blowing of severe wind and incessant falling of rain. The rain seemed to fall like piercing sharp arrows. By pouring water as thick as pillars without cessation, the clouds gradually filled the land of Vrindavan with water, and there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land. The situation was very dangerous, especially for the animals. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavan began to tremble in the severe cold. Unable to find any source of deliverance, they all approached Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. The cows especially, being much aggrieved from the heavy rain, bowed down their heads and taking their calves underneath their bodies, they approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take shelter of his lotus feet. At that time, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan began to pray to Lord Krishna. "Dear Krishna," they prayed, "you are all-powerful and you are very affectionate to your devotees. Now please protect us who have been being harassed by angry Indra." So we'll just go to the Goswamis' notes and see there what they have to say, right? Because the Goswamis will give us a very Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the Acharyas will give us deeper meaning to this pastime, in that they will actually bring out the emotions of Krishna and in the emotions of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So here it is being described that these dark, black, ominous clouds hovered over Vraja and started to roar with thunder as the clouds expanded and became thicker. It poured hail the size of boulders, and the wind tore apart mountains and uprooted trees. The 12 directions were scattered like dry leaves. There were columns of water pouring. So here Prabhupada described it as pillars of water, right? And here the acharyas say they're columns of water. So that's how, here we just get like droplets, like drop, drop, drop sometimes, right? But here they are like pillars of water that was pouring down. The acharyas described that the dense darkness and the press of lightning alternated in succession as to blind all creatures in the dark. As to blind creatures, dark and light, birds were being repeatedly thrown on the ground by the high winds. The forest animals were miserable because they couldn't find any refuge from the pounding rains that shook their bodies, and feeling imminent destruction, the Brajabasis prayed to Krishna to save the cows as well as themselves. They prayed, O Lord Krishna, O Lord of Gokul, please save the cows which are so dear to you, as well as your devotees who are dear. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I know no one else but my devotees, and my devotees know no one else but me. Right? Then from atop, everything came, then from atop came a loud, reassuring voice of Krishna responding to his devotees. He said, "O my friends, no doubt this calamitous situation is the work of Indra, but the adversities become insignificant and by my grace easily overcome by one who surrenders to me." So we see also in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that we should surrender unto him to get over this ocean of birth and death, right? Sarva dharma parityajya mamikam saranam vraja aham tvam sarve papebhyo mokshayasimi masachaha. Right? So we should just surrender to Krishna, and Krishna will give us all protection from all sinful reactions. Then we see that the Acharyas say Krishna could hear his father reciting the 46 names of Indra to appease him, and Nanda Maharaj, he doesn't know that Krishna is God, right? And he's just doing what's best for Krishna, and so therefore he's reciting the names of Indra so too as to give Indra pleasure. Then he would actually stop this devastating rainfall. And we see that Nanda Maharaj does not know that Krishna is God, because in the material world we are covered by Mahamaya, the Mahamaya potency. And, we forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in the spiritual world, the inhabitants are covered by Yoga Maya. So the Yoga Maya potency makes them to forget that Krishna is God, and they just love Krishna, with all their hearts and soul. So much so to the extent that, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They just love him as a child, as their lover, as a friend. So they have these 5 types of different ways that one loves Krishna in the spiritual world. And we all are trying to invoke that love that's there in our hearts, right? All of us have this love for Krishna in our hearts, and we're trying to invoke that love by the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is how we actually invoke this, because we all have this one type of this, of these 5 different rasas. We have one of that, right? One type of this loving exchange with Krishna. And now, because we have fallen into this material world, we have forgotten that relationship with Krishna. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has come here to give us the chanting of the holy names so that we can revive our lost Krishna consciousness and go back home back to Godhead. And Prabhupada says chanting Hare Krishna is so easy that even a child can take part in chanting Hare Krishna, right? And we see when we go on Harinams, right, the children are dancing, the old people are dancing, the youngsters, everybody is dancing to the holy names, to the chanting of the holy names. So anyone can take part in this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this is the most effective way in this age of Kali to actually go back home, back to Godhead. So in this way, we see that, that the inhabitants, they are covered by this Yoga Maya potency, where, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of their intensity of love for Him. This is how much they love Him, that, they forget that He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this world, because of ignorance and because we have fallen into this material manifestation, we have forgotten that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we want to satisfy our senses, and we think that we are great, right? We want to lord it over the material creation. So this is the difference between, us living in this material world and the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And we see that Krishna spoke up. He spoke to his father. Must we pray to this Indra, who I can pulverize into dust in a moment? Put aside your fear, father, and watch my pastimes unfold as I crush this paltry insect's mountainous pride. Dear father, earlier we worshipped Govardhan Hill, and he appeared in person to accept our offerings. Now let us again turn to this infallible deity. So this is Krishna speaking. So let's go to Krishna book and see what Prabhupada has to say. Upon hearing their prayer, Krishna could understand that Indra, being bereft of his sacrificial honor, was pouring down rain. That was accompanied by heavy pieces of ice and strong winds. Although all this was out of season, Krishna understood that this was a deliberate exhibition of anger by Indra. He therefore concluded, this demigod who thinks himself supreme has shown his great power, but I shall answer him according to my position, and I shall teach him that he is not autonomous in managing universal affairs. I am the Supreme Lord over all, and I shall thus take away this false prestige which has risen from his power. The demigods are my devotees, and therefore it is not possible for them to forget my supremacy. But somehow or other, he has become puffed up with material power and thus is now maddened. I shall act in such a way as to relieve him of this false prestige. I shall give protection to my pure devotees in Vrindavan, who are at present completely dependent on my mercy, and whom I have taken complete shelter, under my protection. I must save them by the mystic power. So we see here that Krishna is trying to cut the false pride of Indra. And we see that sometimes devotees, when our puffed up nature comes into play, then Krishna, he immediately, instantly, he gives us a reaction, and he, just to teach us that, hey, you're not in control here. I'm the supreme controller, right? And I'm the boss. And we come to our senses and we say, yes, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and I'm just a servant, right? Servant of Krishna. So in this way, he is trying to curb Indra's pride, because we all go through that, right? And whatever dirt we have in our hearts, Krishna from time to time, he will take this dirt out, and he will put us in such a situation, in an embarrassing situation, so that we take this this dirt comes out of our hearts like this, and we regret our actions in this way. So when devotees go through adversities in their lives, they should remember this pastime of Indra, and how Krishna broke down his false ego by curbing his pride and lifting Govardhan hill. Right? So thinking in this way, Lord Krishna immediately picked up Govardhan hill with one hand, exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Thus, he exhibited his transcendental pastimes of lifting Govardhan hill. Lord Krishna then addressed his devotees, "My dear brothers, my dear father, my dear inhabitants of Vrindavan, you can now safely enter under the umbrella of Govardhan hill, which I have just lifted. Do not be afraid of the hill and think that it will fall from my hand. You have been too much afflicted from the heavy rain and strong winds. Therefore I have lifted this hill, which will protect you exactly like an umbrella. I think this is a proper arrangement to relieve you from your immediate distress. Be happy along with your animals underneath this great umbrella, being assured by Lord Krishna. All the inhabitants of Vrindavan entered beneath the great hill along with their property and animals, and they all appeared to be safe." So we'll go to the Acharya's notes, and we see here that the Acharyas say, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and the different Acharyas, they write that Krishna went to the southern end of the hill and touched it with his with his hand. Like we do pranams, we touch Tulsi Maharani, the dust of Tulsi Maharani, and we place on our foreheads, like that. So Krishna touched the feet of Govardhan, and he touched it to his head, and then he went into a cave, right? He went into a cave, and he went to the middle of to the center of the cave, which was in the middle of Govardhan hill. And from there, he lifted Govardhan. Right? It is being described that he lifted Govardhan nonchalantly, just like a child lifts up a mushroom. The Brajabasis saw Govardhan hill coming up slowly. They stood in awe and reverence as they watched the mountain rise into the air, and Krishna was standing there undisturbed. Right? And Krishna, he picked up the hill like slowly, and he's standing there, and undisturbed by anything. And then he proclaimed, "O mother, O father, O Vrajavasis, please come under the hill together with your possessions." And we see here that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, this king of mountain is floating in the air, and he feels to me no heavier than a swab of cotton. I am not exerting myself at the least, so please stay calm and peaceful. So Krishna is reassuring the inhabitants of Vrindavan that, he's not feeling any weight, because Krishna is floating so many universes in the air, right? So to lift up this one hill is like nothing for him. It is like lifting up a cotton swab. And where was I reading that there's different airs that are flowing, and the air called prahava actually is what the scientists term the gravitational pull, the gravity, basically. That's what they call gravity, prahava. It's the air that holds all the planetary systems in its place. So, seeing the flood waters inundating Braj, Krishna called for Shesha, which is, who is Lord Sankarshan, right, and Sudarshan Chakra to assist With the heat of 10 million suns, Chakra was spinning around Govardhan Hill to keep the water away. The clouds hovered over Govardhan and continued to pour pillars of water. So, we go back to Krishna book, and we see how Prabhupada is describing here the inhabitants of Vrindavan and their animals remained there for a week without being disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any of other discomforts. They were simply astonished to see how Krishna was holding up the mountain with his little finger of his left hand. Seeing the extraordinary mystic power of Krishna, Indra, the king of heaven, was thunderstruck and baffled in his determination. He immediately called for all the clouds and asked them to desist. When the sky became completely cleared of all clouds and there was sunrise again, the strong wind stopped. At that time, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as the lifter of Govardhan Hill, said, "My dear cowherd men, you can leave and take your wives, children, cows, and valuables because everything has ended. The inundation has gone down along with the swelling waters of the rivers." So we'll go back to the Acharyas and see what they have to say. So they give us an insight into what happened under the hill. Do you want to hear? What happened under the hill? So Krishna, he called for all the inhabitants with their possessions, with the cows, to come under the hill whilst this devastating rain was taking place. And inside Govardhan Hill was like the subterranean heavenly kingdom. There were grazing pastures for the cows, jeweled staircases. The floors were made of soft jewels, lots of sumptuous prasadam. There were sitting places, couches, and groves for resting, and supplying all types of comforts for the Brajbasis. And everyone was with Krishna simultaneously. They looked at Krishna with wonder. Many pastimes took place while under the hill. The older gopis and Mother Yashoda looked at Krishna with parental love. So we must understand that, all the Brajbasis came together. Like during the day, Krishna would rise in the morning and he would go out to the pasturing grounds with the cows and the cowherd boys, right? So the other devotees, the other Brajbasis didn't have access to Krishna at that time, right? Because Mother Yashoda was at home, and the gopis were, they would go out to sell their products like butter, like this, and butter, ghee, yogurt, and whatever they would make, they would do this. So they weren't with Krishna all simultaneously, but you will see under the hill that everyone was with Krishna at the same time. So many pastimes took place under the hill, right? But and the acharyas say that the older gopis and Mother Yashoda saw Krishna with parental love, and Mother Yashoda said, "Oh Lala, you may be tired from holding up the hill. You didn't eat anything." So she began feeding him. The Gopas said, "Krishna is not holding up the hill. We are holding up the hill with our sticks." And Mandamangal said, "Because I am chanting the Vedic mantras, the hill is standing up. So this is not being done by Krishna alone." Then Krishna slightly tilted the hill, right? And all the inhabitants got afraid. Now the hill is going to fall. So all the inhabitants became afraid. And then Krishna, he stood still and, he held the hill up because because the cowherd boys were teasing him, he played a trick with them, right? So, so Krishna would look at the gopis with the sidelong glances, and with these sidelong glances, he would send messages to them, and they would send messages to him like this, because you must know all the elders are also there, so he cannot have, he cannot talk to them. So just by his glances, he would actually communicate with the gopis. So many emotions were enveloping the minds of the gopis and Krishna. Krishna, with one hand, he was playing the flute, and all the inhabitants were wonderstruck. Krishna held the hill for 7 days and nights. Then only Indra came to his senses. Right? We see that Prabhupada spoke about this, that Indra came to his senses, and he stopped the rain. He stopped the Samvartika clouds from pouring incessant rains. The rain stopped, and when Krishna knew that it was time to put the hill down, he requested all the cows to leave first, and then the brahmanas, then the women and children, then the gopis, the cowherdmen, the gopas, right? All were attracted to Krishna. It is being described that the cows would go for some distance, and they would run back into, under the hill to take one glance at Krishna, and they would run out again. They would run out again, and then, and they'll think of Krishna, and they'll run back in. So this, kept on happening, and, the cowherd boys as well, the gopis as well, the, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, they would do like this. And, so Krishna, he was still standing there with the hill, and these inhabitants of Vrindavan, because of their attachment to Krishna, they couldn't let go of Krishna, of seeing Krishna, right? So he requested so all these inhabitants, all were so attached to Krishna, right? It's being described that cows would go for some distance and they would run back and take one glance at Krishna and go back out. So eventually they all went out, and Krishna put the hill down, and he exited from the same cave that he went in through to lift the hill. So we see that the Brajbasis were getting impatient as to when Krishna would come out, because he would come out now after putting the hill down, and eventually he did, and he instructed them that now we shall go on Govardhan Parikram. So they all circumambulated Govardhan hill. So let's see what Prabhupada has to say. So all the men loaded their valuables on the carts and slowly left with their cows and other paraphernalia. After they had cleared out everything, Lord Krishna very slowly placed Govardhan hill in exactly the same position it had been before. When everything was done, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan approached Krishna with feelings of love and embraced him with great ecstasy. The gopis, being naturally very affectionate to Krishna, began to offer him yogurt mixed with their tears, and they poured incessant blessings upon him. Mother Yashoda, Mother Rohini, Nanda, and Balaram, who are the strongest of all strong, embraced Krishna one after another. From spontaneous feelings of affection, blessed him over and over again. In the heavens, different demigods from different planetary systems, such as Siddha Loka, Gandharva Loka, and Charana Loka, all began to show their complete satisfaction. They poured showers of flowers on the surface of the earth and sounded different conch shells. There was beating of drums, and being inspired by godly feelings, the residents of Gandharva Loka began to play on their tamboras to please the Lord. After this incident, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrounded by his dear friends and animals, returned to his home as usual. The gopis began to chant the glorious pastimes of Lord Krishna with great feelings, for they were chanting from their heart. So we see that the gopis were chanting different prayers in praising Krishna for his for his wondrous act that he had done by lifting Govardhan Hill and saving the inhabitants from the torrential rains. And by this torrential rains, everything was destroyed in Vrindavan, everything. And when Krishna came out and he just looked at everything, he glanced at everything, and everything came back to its position like nothing had happened. So this is what the acharyas say, that when Krishna just glanced over everything, everything came back to its position, and nobody would know that there was such devastation that occurred in Vrindavan. So with this, I'll stop here. And if anyone would like to contribute to this, during Govardhan Leela, during our festival of Govardhan Leela in the temple room, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami says very nice, interesting, pastimes of Govardhan Hill. So if anyone can recollect any of those pastimes, you're most welcome to share with us. We can get the mic for you. Anyone who would like to say anything? Also we see that there's so many pastime places around Govardhan Hill, right? When we go on Govardhan Parikram, then we go to these different pastime places like Kusum Sarovar, Radhakund, Shamakund, and Govinda Kund, right? This is where Lord Indra came after the devastation, and he offered prayers to Krishna, because he came to his senses that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because only the Supreme Personality of Godhead could have done this, could have saved the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So he came and he offered his prayers, and then he did an arati. This is the best part. He did an arati for Krishna, right? And all the cowherd men are looking like, what is going on here? Because they know Krishna as their friend, not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when they saw that, Indra worshipping Krishna with this huge paraphernalia, Maharaj says that the incense was like a meter long, and Indra is so tall, and he is he's with no difficulty at all, he's waving this incense to Krishna. And the lamp was so huge also. So when those cowherd boys saw this, they said, hey, this is fun, let's go and play. So after Indra went away, they went there and they said, this is fun. So they tried to pick up the incense and they couldn't. Then it took this a numerous number of boys to come and lift up this incense. And then they all imitated Indra by worshipping Krishna. They all took this incense and they went around Krishna like this, with great difficulty. And same with the lamp, and same with the chamara and the peacock feather. And after when they went home, they told their parents, what we saw? Can you imagine what we saw? Today at Govardhan, so every day when they would do their pastimes and have their pastimes, they would go home to their parents and they would talk about these pastimes, praising Krishna. And then they told, today this is what we saw. There was this huge man, and then we saw the different other men, one with 4 heads, came to Krishna, and they were showering flowers upon Krishna. And this one man, he took this huge incense, and he was going around Krishna. So because they don't know about all this, they don't worship Krishna like this, because they love Krishna, they have this bhav for Krishna, of Krishna Prem. So they just love him as their friend. They don't love him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, and they all had a great laugh after this, and they would roll on the floor laughing and talking about this pastime. So, Hare Krishna, I'll stop there. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.